Remember when ski trips meant cramming into your buddy's station wagon at dawn, wool mittens already damp before you hit the hill? There was a time when Canadian mountain resorts weren't just places to ski, they were Saturday traditions, first kiss memories, and where your dad taught you to pizza-wedge down the bunny hill. Today we're exploring 15 mountain resorts that Canadians once loved but rarely visit today. These weren't always the mega resorts with heated gondolas and fancy apps. Some had a single rope tow, a chili pot in the lodge, and maybe one instructor who knew everybody's name. But they taught us to carve, to brave the cold, and to count our loonies for hot chocolate. Most are silent now, shuttered, forgotten, or simply left behind when skiing went corporate. So why did these beloved mountains fade? Let's rewind the lift and find out. 1. Grey Rocks. Grey Rocks wasn't just a ski hill, it was a legend. Perched on Sugarloaf Mountain overlooking Lac Le Jeune in the Laurentians, this four-season resort opened way back in 1905. For decades, it was the place to be. The Snow Eagle Ski School became famous across North America, training everyone from beginners to Olympic hopefuls. Lucille Wheeler, Canada's Olympic medalist, trained here. Even the Police shot a music video on the slopes in 1981. Families came back year after year. The inn had that perfect mix of rustic charm and real comfort. You'd finish a day on the mountain, then gather in the lodge where the walls were covered with old photos of skiers in wool sweaters and leather boots. The trails weren't the steepest, but they had character. Tree-lined runs that made you feel like you were skiing through a postcard. But by the 2000s, Grey Rocks was struggling. Nearby Mont Tremblant had transformed into a massive intra-west resort with hundreds of millions in investment. Grey Rocks couldn't keep up. The infrastructure aged. The lifts needed replacement. Financing dried up. In March 2009, the hotel and ski hill closed for good. Today, the site sits empty, a ghost of Quebec's ski history. Old postcards still float around online, showing the inn in its glory days, the Snow Eagle badges collectors hunt for, and chairlifts that will never run again. 2. Mont Glenn. Mont Glenn was a classic Eastern Townships hill with a devoted crew of weekend warriors. Nothing fancy, just honest skiing. The fixed-grip double chair hauled you up to some signature fall-line trails that got your heart racing. Locals knew every bump, every turn, every spot where you could cut through the trees if you were brave enough. For decades, Mont Glenn hummed along. Families from the townships made it their Saturday tradition. Kids progressed from the bunny hill to the double blacks. The lodge was small but warm, with terrible coffee and amazing fries. You'd see the same faces every weekend, the kind of place where everyone knew your name. But ownership changed hands. Financing became an issue. Smaller hills across. Quebec were closing left and right, unable to match the modern expectations of skiers who wanted high-speed lifts and snowmaking. By 2004, Mont Glenn's lifts stopped turning. The trails were left to grow over. Today, if you hike up, you can still find the old lift line. Cables gone, towers rusting, nature slowly reclaiming what was once a lively mountain. Some locals still talk about it with that faraway look, remembering when the hill was packed every weekend and the sound of skis carving echoed through the trees. 3. Ski Mont Sheffford. Ski Mont Sheffford sat right next to Bromont, another Montérégian hill with a loyal local following. What made Shefford special was the night skiing, those floodlights turning the white slopes into a glowing playground after dark. Families loved it because you could finish dinner and still get a few runs in before bedtime. Kids thought it was magic. Shefford was never huge, but it was a reliable learn-to-ski hub through the 90s and into the 2000s. The vibe was relaxed. No pretension, just people who wanted to ski without driving hours or spending a fortune. The rental shop smelled like wet boots and wax. The lift tickets were cheap. You could park right at the base and be on the snow in minutes. But being next door to Bromont proved fatal. Bromont kept upgrading, new lifts, better snowmaking, slicker marketing. Sheffford couldn't match it. Maintenance costs climbed. Compliance with new safety regulations required investment the owners couldn't afford. After the 2005-06 season, the hill closed. The lifts were dismantled. The lodge stood empty for years before being torn down. Now, if you drive past, you'll see an abandoned lift hut and that crooked Ferme sign, a quiet reminder of when Shefford's slopes glowed under the lights. Telling and preparing this video took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the video. 4. Ski Mont Alta. Mont Alta had soul. Steep, narrow, old-school lines that separated the serious skiers from the weekend dabblers. Opened in 1951 in the heart of the Laurentians, this hill had a reputation. If you could ski Alta, you could ski anywhere. The locals wore it like a badge of honor. The runs twisted through dense pine forests. No wide-open cruisers here, just technical trails that demanded respect. The chalet was simple but cozy, the kind of place where you'd warm up with a bowl of soup and swap stories about your best or worst runs. Mont Alta wasn't trying to impress tourists. It was a skier's mountain, pure and simple. Then disaster struck. A fire tore through the chalet, destroying critical systems and infrastructure. The owners faced a brutal reality. Rebuilding would cost more than they could raise. Operations ended. For years, the site sat abandoned, lift towers silhouetted against the sky, the burn scars still visible in the timbers. Today, the terrain is used by backcountry skiers and snowshoers, but there are no lifts, no lodge, no official operations. Just the memory of what Mont Alta once was, a steep, soulful mountain that demanded everything from you and gave it back tenfold. 5. Montjoy. Montjoy, also known as Mont Hatley, had roots stretching back to 1939 when the Hillcrest Ski Club formed. This was early days, rope tows, hand-packed runs, volunteers doing everything from trail maintenance to lodge cooking. The Eastern Townships community poured their hearts into it. Through the late 20th century, Montjoy kept that classic community feel. You'd show up on a Sunday morning and see 3 generations of the same family loading onto the T-bar. Kids learned to ski from their grandparents who'd learned on the same hill decades earlier. The lodge had that warm, lived-in feeling, wooden benches worn smooth, windows steamed up from hot chocolate, bulletin boards covered with race results, and lost and found notices. But the ski industry was changing. Bigger hills with better facilities pulled families away. Lift maintenance became expensive. Insurance costs climbed. Montjoy struggled through the 90s before finally closing as a lift-served operation. The site shifted to other recreational uses. Today, the base meadow sits quiet. No chairlifts, no weekend crowds. Just a flat expanse of snow where generations of Quebecers learned to turn. Those old Hillcrest pins still pop up at antique shops, small reminders of when Montjoy was the heart of the community. 6. Mont Echo. Mont Echo represented the ambition of Quebec's 60s ski boom. Opened in 1963 in the Sutton region, it was a serious build-out. 15 to 25 runs, 3 lifts, and dreams of becoming a major Eastern Townships destination. The developers saw the future. Skiing was exploding in popularity, and everyone wanted a piece. For a brief window, Mont Echo hummed with activity. Families drove down from Montreal. The trails were varied, gentle greens for beginners, challenging blacks for hot shots. The lodge buzzed on weekends. Instructors taught the classic techniques of the era. Ski clubs held races. It felt like Mont Echo had staying power. But the ski boom also meant competition. Dozens of new resorts opened across Quebec, all chasing the same market. Smaller operations like Mont Echo got squeezed. the economics didn't work. By 1978, just 15 years after opening, Mont Echo closed. The lifts were dismantled, the lodge abandoned. Today, if you know where to look, you can still find the old lift footings buried in the woods and those faded paper day tickets in local archives. Mont Echo's story is a cautionary tale. Even ambitious dreams couldn't guarantee survival in the brutal shakeout of Quebec's ski industry. 7. Fortress Mountain. Fortress Mountain wasn't just a ski hill, it was an Alberta icon. Perched high in Kananaskis country off Highway 40, it offered serious alpine terrain and jaw-dropping views. Opened in 1967, Fortress quickly became a weekend escape. For Calgarians looking for steep runs and big mountain vibes without the Banff crowds. The 70s through 90s were Fortress's golden years. The base lodge had that perfect ski bum energy. Wood stoves, cheap beer, people who lived for powder days. The terrain was challenging, with long runs and natural features that kept expert skiers coming back. Locals developed a fierce loyalty. This was their mountain, and they'd defend it passionately. But challenges mounted. Harsh winters damaged infrastructure. Ownership changed hands. Financial problems piled up. After years of struggle, lift-served skiing ended in 2004. The site became one of Canada's most famous ghost resorts. Chairlifts frozen in place, buildings decaying, nature slowly reclaiming it all. Today, photographers and urban explorers trek to Fortress to capture the eerie beauty of abandoned lifts against mountain peaks. Those silent chairs still sway in the wind, a haunting reminder of when Fortress was alive with skiers carving down under the big Alberta sky. 8. Silver Summit. Silver Summit was Alberta's unlikely ski hill. Located north of Edson, not in the Rockies, it boasted 3 lifts, 17 runs, and in the 80s, even ski jump towers. With about 1,000 feet of vertical, it was a rare non-mountain resort in a province where everyone expected skiing to mean heading west. Opened in 1969, Silver Summit served a different crowd, folks from Edson, Hinton, and smaller northern Alberta towns who couldn't always make the trek to Jasper or Lake Louise. The hill had character, tree-lined runs, decent pitch, and a tight-knit community of regulars. Weekend races drew families from across the region. The lodge served hearty meals, and the ski patrol knew everyone by name. But distance from major population centers meant limited traffic. Financial headwinds hit hard. Maintenance on aging lifts became expensive. Competition from Rockies resorts with better snow and marketing pulled skiers away. Silver Summit limped along for decades before finally closing, with reports confirming its end by 2018. Today the site is overgrown. That chairlift bullwheel sits half buried in weeds. The day lodge has plywood over the windows. Silver Summit's story reminds us that location matters. Even good hills can't survive if they're too far from the crowds. 9. Forbidden Plateau. Forbidden Plateau was Vancouver Island's ski icon. By 1972, it had the island's first chairlift, and generations of islander families learned to ski on its slopes. The name alone sparked imagination. Forbidden Plateau sounded mysterious, wild, like something from a legend. The reality was equally magical, a mountain lodge surrounded by coastal forest, where you could ski in the morning and glimpse the ocean in the distance. The community loved Forbidden Plateau. Courtenay and Comox families made it their winter tradition. Kids progressed through ski school programs, teenagers raced, adults carved up the slopes and gathered in the lodge afterward. The vibe was relaxed and unpretentious, real West Coast skiing where nobody cared about designer gear or fancy credentials. Then February 1999 brought epic snowfall, the kind of Storm Island residents still talk about. The day lodge roof collapsed under the weight. Worse, the resort was uninsured for the damage. The owners faced a devastating choice: rebuild with money they didn't have or walk away. they walked. Subsequent attempts to revive Forbidden Plateau failed. Today, lone chair towers stand in the mist, and the access road grows over. Forbidden Plateau became a cautionary tale. One freak storm, one insurance gap, and a beloved mountain was gone forever. 10. Diamond Head Chalet. Diamond Head wasn't a typical resort. It was an adventure. The Brandvold family built their alpine lodge high above Howe Sound, completing it in 1946. Getting there meant a challenging hike or ski, but the reward was spectacular. A backcountry-style experience with lodge comfort, surrounded by the dramatic peaks of Garibaldi Provincial Park. For mid-century British Columbians, Diamond Head represented a different kind of mountain experience. You earned your turns. The lodge provided warmth and meals, but you had to get yourself up the mountain first. Families who made the trip felt like pioneers. The views were breathtaking, Howe Sound stretching out below, glaciated peaks all around, the kind of scenery that makes you understand why people fall in love with BC mountains. But Diamond Head's location also spelled its doom. As provincial park policy shifted, commercial operations within park boundaries became problematic. In 1972, the decision came down. Commercial activity would end. The Brandvold family's dream was over. The old chalet deteriorated over the following decades before eventually being removed. Today, hikers trek to Elfin Lakes and pass through the area where Diamond Head once stood. The skyline remains unchanged, those same dramatic peaks, but the lodge is gone, leaving only black and white photos and the memories of those who experienced its magic. 11. Azu Ski Village. Azu Ski Village represented the pioneering spirit of northern BC skiing. Located by Azuzeta Lake near Pine Pass, this wasn't a glamorous destination. It was a scrappy, community-built operation that held its first race in 1955. A T-bar was added in 1968-69. There were cabins, a day lodge, and a small but devoted community of weekend skiers who braved the cold northern winters. The isolation was both Azu's charm and its curse. For locals, it was a godsend, a place to ski without driving hundreds of kilometers to bigger resorts. Families built traditions there. Kids learned to ski on that T-bar, gripping the bar with mittened hands as it dragged them up the hill. The lodge was basic but warm, the kind of place where everyone contributed. Someone made the chili, someone else kept the fire going, everyone helped clear snow from the parking area. But as the 90s arrived, skiing shifted north to better developed resorts. Ownership changed hands. Maintenance became harder to justify. The small community couldn't sustain it. Azu Ski Village faded away. Today, relics remain. That rusting T-bar mechanism, cabin steps buried under snow, foundations slowly collapsing. Azu's story is one of frontier skiing, where passion and community built something remarkable, but economics and geography ultimately won. 12. Lac Le Jeune Ski Ranch. Lac Le Jeune Ski Ranch combined two great BC loves, skiing and ranch culture. Located near Kamloops in the interior, this operation offered a unique twist. Learn to ski in the morning, explore ranch life in the afternoon. The setting was gorgeous, rolling terrain, pine forests, crisp dry snow that interior BC is famous for. For families from Kamloops and surrounding areas, Lac Le Jeune was an affordable weekend getaway. The skiing was modest but fun, nothing too challenging, perfect for kids and intermediates. The ranch aspect added appeal. You could ride horses, help with chores, eat hearty ranch meals. It felt like stepping into a simpler time where life moved slower and nature surrounded you. But niche operations like Lac Le Jeune faced constant challenges. The market was small. Kamloops skiers could drive to Sun Peaks, which offered far more terrain and amenities. The ranch couldn't compete on skiing alone, and the hybrid model, part ski hill, part ranch, proved difficult to sustain financially. Over time, operations wound down. Today, the area is used for other recreational purposes. That wooden sign, paint peeling and letters faded, is all that remains of when Lac Le Jeune offered BC families a unique mountain ranch experience. 13. Whistler Mountain Ski Club. Before Whistler became a global mega resort, there was the Whistler Mountain Ski Club Hill, a small beginner area that taught countless kids their first turns. Located at the base of what would become one of the world's most famous ski destinations, this modest hill was where the community learned to ski. The club hill had rope tows and gentle slopes perfect for wobbly beginners. Parents stood at the bottom, watching their kids fall and get back up, until suddenly they were gliding down with confidence. Instructors volunteered their time. Older kids helped younger ones. It was grassroots skiing at its best. Nothing fancy, just a community teaching itself to ski. But as Whistler exploded into an international destination, the small club hill became obsolete. Why run a rope tow when you could ride the gondola? The land became more valuable for real estate and resort development. The club hill closed, replaced by condos and commercial buildings. Today, longtime Whistler residents remember it wistfully. That tiny hill where they learned to ski before Whistler meant champagne lodges and Olympic pedigree. That faded pennant represents a humbler beginning when Whistler was just a mountain village teaching its kids to love snow. 14. Manning Park Resort. Manning Park Resort sat in beautiful Manning Provincial Park on the Cascade Highway, offering skiing with a wilderness feel. For decades, it operated as a four-season destination, skiing in winter, hiking and camping in summer. The location was spectacular, surrounded by old-growth forest and mountain peaks. BC families loved Manning Park for its accessibility and affordability. You didn't need to be an expert skier to enjoy it. The runs were varied, enough greens for beginners, enough blues for progressing intermediates. The lodge was comfortable, with that classic BC mountain vibe, wood beams, stone fireplace, windows looking out on snowy slopes. After skiing, you could explore the park, spot wildlife, breathe the clean mountain air. But Manning Park struggled with the same issues as many smaller resorts: aging infrastructure, inconsistent snow, competition from bigger operations. Lift maintenance became expensive. Snowmaking was limited. The resort changed ownership multiple times, each iteration trying to find a sustainable model. Eventually, lift-served skiing ended. Today, Manning Park still operates as a resort, but without the alpine skiing that once defined it. Those vintage trail maps show runs that are no longer groomed, chairlifts that no longer turn. For those who skied there in its heyday, it's a bittersweet transformation. The park remains beautiful, but something essential is missing. 15. Hemlock Valley. Hemlock Valley represented the promise of lower mainland skiing. Located near Mission, it offered decent terrain and was closer than Whistler for Vancouver area residents. Opened in the late 70s, Hemlock had ambitions to become a major player in BC's ski industry. The resort had genuine appeal, good vertical, varied terrain, and stunning views of the Fraser Valley. Families came up for day trips. Serious skiers appreciated the steeper runs. The lodge had that enthusiastic startup energy, owners and staff who believed they were building something special. Season pass holders formed a tight community, returning week after week. But Hemlock Valley faced brutal competition. Whistler and Grouse Mountain pulled the Vancouver market. Snow conditions were inconsistent, too low in elevation, too close to the coast. Financial problems mounted. Ownership changed hands repeatedly. Each new owner promised revitalization, but the economics never worked. The lifts ran intermittently through the 2000s and 2010s, before finally stopping for good. Today, Hemlock Valley sits partially abandoned. Some infrastructure remains, but no lift-served skiing. Those cracked season passes that occasionally surface on eBay Tell the story of skiers who believed in Hemlock's potential, who kept coming back even as the signs of trouble mounted, hoping their mountain would survive. Which of these mountains holds your memories? Maybe you carved your first turns at Grey Rocks, or chased powder at Fortress. Drop your story in the comments. We love hearing from you. If this trip down memory lane hit home, smash that like button and subscribe for more nostalgic Canadian content. Hit the bell so you never miss when we explore the places, brands, and moments that made us who we are. Thanks for watching.